Hi, welcome back to the Mandarin Blueprint Podcast, episode 160 today. And it's a pretty short one, actually. We've got just a few emails. And mostly, I think, if you're learning Chinese, what you'd be interested in here is the mnemonic section towards the end of this podcast. It's all going to be good, don't get me wrong. But I'm going to go through, if you're learning Chinese and you want to learn vocabulary quickly, we always have a little bit at the end of the podcast where people send their comments and ideas about how to create mnemonics, or as we call them, living links. So stay tuned for that. So the first comment we've got here is Ceri Woods on level 19. So there's 57 levels currently in the Mandarin Blueprint Method, covering 1,530 characters and 4,500 words, something like that. And we're about to double the size to 100 levels. So Ceri's made it through a really good chunk of the course here. And she says, "Oh my goodness, look, I made it. Yes, it took me longer than I wanted. Yeah, it always does. We always wanted it to go quicker than we actually do. But the important thing is you built an incredible foundation right now. But I totally made it to the end of this level, LOL. Want to say again, your course is fab, and you both explain things so eloquently. Unlike me in my sleep-deprived state right now." Well, thanks a lot, Ceri. And trust me, if you knew how many mistakes I make just making a simple podcast in my native language, you wouldn't be so complimentary, I don't think. But yes, the edited versions of the videos that we leave in the course are very eloquent, and I appreciate that. So thank you. Keep in touch and let us know how you get on as you keep progressing through the course. Next is Clyde. Welcome to Pronunciation Mastery. He says, "I've been prone to drowning in learning Mandarin, so Blueprint is my life raft. Diving in, well, not to toot our own horns, but Mandarin Blueprint, I mean, yeah, it's your life raft. You've struck gold with this one, mate. If you don't make it with our course, I mean, I can't imagine you're going to make it, because it's just, I personally, as a Chinese learner, I can't imagine anything more clear and easy if you're a serious learner. That is, like, if you just want to learn some phrases and go out there and just get the very basics, like Mandarin Blueprint maybe is not for you. But if you're serious about becoming really good at Chinese quickly, efficiently, and whilst having a blast, then yeah, Mandarin Blueprint is the way to go. But that said though, I say that pronunciation mastery is actually good for everyone. So, because you learn about 200 common words and phrases at the same time as just learning how to pronounce stuff. And one of the things that after all these years since I've made it, like since Phil and I made it, like what, 3 years ago now, something like that. One of the things that I kind of forgot to say is a huge benefit of pronunciation mastery is the fact that you can go through the course about 6 hours, and you probably won't be able to pronounce everything like a native speaker, but you'll be well on your way. You'll be able to pronounce accurately and clearly every sound of the language. And kind of more importantly, I suppose, at the very, very early stage of your learning, if you're going to China as well, is that you'll be able to read and pronounce pinyin and understand what you're saying clearly and accurately. So that means you can just pick up a phrase book. After 6 hours of our course, in fact, probably less than 6 hours, if you sort of skim over where we teach you words and stuff, just go to the main points, maybe a couple of hours of content. And you can pick up a phrase book and read anything in that phrase book, using the pinyin, of course, accurately, so a native speaker will understand you. So that's just really cool to think about that, isn't it? I remember doing that when I went to China for the first time, because obviously I didn't know any characters. And, I learned Chinese I did Pimsleur just for a couple of months beforehand, just like, half an hour a day. And, I learned pinyin as well. And I just remember going around just reading these random phrases. I had no idea what I was reading, but I knew the English, obviously. And I was just like, I want this. And I'd say it, and someone would go, "Oh, over there." Or, they'd be able to understand me. And I was like, wow, it's like it's like a book of magic spells or something. So that's really cool. Next is Kolia on ban. And Kolia says, "Na, 什么什么怎么办?" About 50 times per day at the office. Yeah. So if you, basically it's like, what if something happens, what would we do then? So, for example, 那客人不来怎么办? Like, if the guest doesn't arrive or the customer doesn't arrive or doesn't come, what do we do? 怎么办? Literally how to manage. There's probably a better word. But yeah, how to manage this, how to solve this problem. So yeah, it's really common. And yeah, it's a good phrase you can go and start using right now. Next is Brian on when. This is in the pronunciation. This is quite funny. When and wèntí and guan. Pronunciation mastery course. He says, so is it fair to say that guan is something like F off? And the answer is absolutely. You've got to be very careful with that word. I'm not going to tell the story. I'll let Phil tell it. But maybe if you want to ask him, say, do you have any stories, Phil, related to saying guan to Chinese people? And maybe he'll tell you. Maybe he'll pretend that there is no story. But we'll just leave it there. Next is Eve Boykova on problem initial SH. 是 as a conjunction. I knew intonation played a role in general in Mandarin speaking, but so great to become aware of how it impacts real-life speech in specific ways at this stage. Makes for many more light bulb moments during listening. Big thanks for introducing it like this. Yeah, this is an interesting point. You know, this is something that I think I did, and I think most people would think and assume, or at least be wondering about at some point early into their study. It's like, well, Chinese is a tonal language, right? So does it have intonation? And if you aren't sure what intonation is, I guess, yeah, let's say saying what in different ways. So if I say what, like with a sort of fourth tone, right, that's basically what it is, what, then that's kind of like I'm demanding an answer from someone, right? But if I say what, like with the first tone, I'm just kind of like, maybe I'm just like, I'm seeing something, it's kind of funny, right? I'm being jovial about it. Or I'm like, what? Like someone just told me something amazing or just crazy, and I'm just like, I can't believe what you just said. You get the idea, right? That's intonation. It's like saying words or phrases in a certain way to give a different meaning. And you think, well, Chinese is different. It's tonal. So surely the tones are used for the meaning. How can they also be used for the intonation, which is also a kind of meaning, I guess? But you know what I mean? It's not like in terms of definition of the word. But it is very commonly used. My wife told me a good example of sort of a sentence for this, sort of illustrate this intonation thing in Chinese. So you take the sentence, 我是一个人, right? I am a person, right? If you say, 我是一个人, like you put emphasis on the 我, it's saying I am a person, but he or she or it most likely is not, right? Or if you're going into a restaurant, you say, 我是一个人. Okay, so I am one person. Or if someone's like maybe questioning your morals, or maybe looking down on you in some way, in some really bad way, you can say, 我是一个人. 我是一个人. I am a person. So you have to speak to me like I'm a person, not a dog, you know, something like that, right? But you get the idea. So you can emphasize certain words and it has a completely different meaning. So anyway, I thought that was quite interesting. So yes, intonation does play a big role. Next is Xevithirus Adrastos, which is possibly the best name I've ever come across. Hope it's real. Interesting to note that a rice plant, this is for mi, by the way. Mi means rice, 米饭, 大米, but it also means meter. And it's something I've never personally ever thought about until now, reading this. Interesting to note that a rice plant grows to about 3 feet, or 1 meter. So it's an accurate analogy word to indicate the measurement of a meter. Fascinating. I'm just going to take what Xevithirus said as absolute fact, by the way. I'm just assuming that he's correct in saying that a rice plant does grow to 3 feet. If that's the case, I'm fascinated by that, and I will be telling everyone that without confirming that it's actually true from now on, because that's the sort of person I am. So thank you for that. Keep those. Any more tips? Not tips. Little factoids. Send them in, please. Next is Jim Mcglennon on special effects and memory athletics. This is right at the beginning of the course when you get into phase 1 and we're teaching you how to create memory palaces to learn characters, right? And he says, I've just begun my journey into the hands moving method. That's what we call our character learning technique, if you want to aware. No better way of learning Chinese characters in existence as far as I know. And I know that because we took some of the best methods for learning characters, combined them, made them way better with our own innovations. So it's like, if there is one that you think is better, please let me know. But I highly doubt it. Hands and move method, and I'm back into long forgotten territory. About 30 years ago, I was going through a tough time and sought self-help techniques. I bought a book on self-hypnosis, and guess what? It utilized the memory palace techniques. The reason I've posted this is because all of us worldwide have gone through a very tough period recently. The virus. You can, as I did many moons ago, take yourself in your mind's eye to a far gentler, more relaxing place and dramatically relieve your daily stresses and worries. Blessings to you all, Jim. Thank you very much, Jim. And I do actually, I do find that the method that we use, the hands and move method, the memory palace technique, does offer a sort of kind of a method of escape in some way. And you can just sit there, close your eyes, and have fun and learn Chinese at the same time. What could be better? Ceri has got in touch again, and she just commented on 慢慢. So there's a phrase, 你慢慢说, 别着急, 别着急. So 慢慢说, 慢慢 is just like slowly, right? 你慢慢说 or 慢慢地说. 别着急 is like, hey, don't 着急, I guess. It's not nervous, it's not stressed. What would be the best definition of 着急? I know we obviously have it in our course, but I haven't looked it up. 着急 is like stressed out, I guess, or anxious. Anxious would be probably the best word. 别着急, don't be so anxious, or don't be sort of anxious to do something. Impetuous, maybe. Possibly the phrase said most often to me as a child. Nice to know how it would have sounded in Chinese. I love getting the sentences that appeal to real-world me. I feel like I'm eventually making progress, even if it's a small thing. Oh, fantastic. And once you've built your foundation, like you get past, let's say, you get well into the intermediate course, and you're able to just read Chinese to a relatively high level at that point, you can start exploring sentence mining. So if you want to learn a new word that's you haven't come across in our course yet, eventually you probably will, because our course is going to be so big that you're going to it's going to pretty much cover every word that's not like ridiculously advanced and rare. But you know, say you come across a word that you want to learn before you get to there in our course, you don't want to wait like weeks or months to get there, right? And you want to learn that word, you have the foundation now where you can actually go to baidu.cn/dict, that's my favorite, or there's loads of what I call sentence warehouse. Just type in Chinese example sentences and you'll find there's like line line.dict, I think, or NCI. It keeps changing its name, but anyway, you'll find it. Line dict. And go find an example sentence that you can mainly understand with a lot of context. It's reasonable length, and then just put it in your flashcards. It helps to have audio. That's like the downside. All of our sentences come with native male and female studio quality audio, right? So you're not going to get that, but you could get your tutor to record it, or even better, send her a bunch, and just get her to send it back to you and create with the audio, or just get her to create the sentence for you or him, which will cost money, but you know it'll be higher quality, and that you'll have more of a stronger memory of the sentences because of how you got them. So searching for sentences and creating mnemonics, the actual process itself does also make things easier to remember, which is pretty cool. So next is Cindy on 电影 and 明天, and she says, yes, thanks for the video explanation. I love the YING twang when I hear it in Chinese dramas. I can't read today, in general really, but today especially, and have gotten used to shadowing that sound. Phil also made a great point that it reduces the chances of a learner mixing the ing with the in sound, which for me was it was and still is, I suppose, the most difficult sort of minimal pair. It's called a minimal pair, like sounds in a language which sound very similar but are very actually different. So ing and in Chinese for me, and I think must be one of the hardest. It might just be me, but I've got a feeling that that's probably the hardest, or one of the top 3 hardest to sort of identify. Did he say ing or in? But the biggest thing, if you aren't already aware, Cindy, or anyone else listening to this, if you're having trouble listening or identifying similar sounding sounds in Chinese Mandarin, then the easiest remedy to that is learning lots of vocabulary. So just for example, I'll take a really basic word, right? 电影, which means movie, literally electric shadow, which is pretty cool. Now, there's no word in Chinese. I've learned thousands and thousands of words, and there's no word that I know called 电影, like with an Y-I-N, 电影, with that tone pair, and Y-I-N. It just doesn't exist. It might exist, but I don't know it, and I know, 99.1% or whatever of like the words out there. So yeah, you don't need to get to like 10,000 words or whatever before you can start doing this. You can start doing this after 1,000 words, 2,000. Like you can start to be like, that must be ing. Your brain does this very, very quickly, instantly, in fact, because you're like, there's no combination of those two sounds with that tone pair that I know of, but I do know it for in, but I do know it for ing, or vice versa. And that is just simply the most effective way of solving the problem, in my experience. Next is Kolia again. For another bonus, she says, actually don't know if Kolia is a female or male name, but I'll just say Kolia, is 可, also uses a shortcut for 可是. I feel like I already saw that in instant messages, maybe. 可. I've never personally come across it in just everyday speech, possibly in written or formal, but 可, yeah, it's used in formal, I believe, to mean like it's a shortened version, but you wouldn't hear it in spoken Chinese. I haven't. And that's, again, not to say that I've heard everything, and I'm like the master of Chinese, but I daily input for 5, 6, 7 years, I don't know. So, but 可 by itself is used quite commonly to basically mean very. But it's used in a rather specific way. So I could explain it. So basically, so 你别这样, or 你别扔了. Let's say that, because that's actually a phrase that I've heard recently. I'm just like, you're gonna use that. So 你别扔了. So don't throw that, or throw that away, right? It's probably the most common context. 你别, like do not, 别 means don't, right? But if you say 可别扔了, like you add that in front, it just makes it extra strong. So really do not do that, okay? So 可, you'll use that as like it magnifies intensity of certain usages like that. All right, so told you it was a pretty short one today. That's the last email / comment that we've had this week. That just on sort of general miscellaneous topics. Now we're going to jump into the vocab living links, right? So this is sort of a phase 2 of the course. We start introducing this. Once you start building up your characters, then we guide you on how to learn compound words very, very quickly. Like we're talking about almost instantly. I'd say like 1 or 2 minutes tops to actually learn it. And then by creating this connection, then you find an image related to that connection. You put it in your flashcards. And that's it, and then you start reviewing it. Because, of course, just like with anything, no matter how great your learning technique is, it's very likely you're going to forget everything within a relatively short amount of time. If you don't review the information, reviewing is essential. Now, it's going to take a lot longer to forget the way we teach you, but still, you do need to review, right? So anyway, if you're learning Chinese, I highly recommend that you use this technique that we're about to get into. First here, so John McLeod, I believe that is how you pronounce it, on Vocab Unlocked from in, as in way, so which means because, and he just says, I used an image of a chicken crossing a road because it supply punchline. So choose your favorite chicken crosses the road joke. That'd be great for an image as well. You could find an awesome image for that, I'm sure, and put that in there. And you again, this is kind of like, we always like to think about the characters as well. In way, so reason, in means reason, and way is like for, basically. That's one of the meanings of it. So the reason is for. It's very sort of straightforward. It's kind of a built-in mnemonic, so you could put that in your notes as well if you wanted to. Next is Annette Bicknell on Vocab Unlocked for yun, as in 运气, 运气, which means luck. So yun by itself means to transport. So you'd say, you wouldn't just say, it's more something, 你把你的那个, I'm so bad at coming up with examples on the fly. 我把你的箱子, I'd take your luggage or your suitcase, let's say, or your box, 运过去, 运到英国. No, I'll 运到英国, so I'll like transport it to England. So that's kind of like sort of context that 运 is used in. And then qi, well, qi is like what you would probably have heard like Tai Chi, that's how they pronounce it, or probably Shang-Chi as well, that new movie. It's probably that character they're trying to say. It's like energy, essentially, but it's used in lots of different ways. Obviously, the most common meaning of qi is just air, breath. But it's also used in that more abstract way to mean like life force, energy kind of thing. So anyway, it's like, so luck. That's really interesting. Until today, I've never actually thought about this combination. 运气, to transport energy, or the energy of transport. Interesting. So Annette says the Chinese adopted Japanese lucky cat you see in Asian store windows. So yeah, that'd be a good reference. But I'd also like to connect some way to these characters. I know. One of those Japanese lucky cats in a box. So you've just yuned it to someone as a gift. Right? You've just transported it for someone to give them some energy. Right? As though it's given them some yunqi. So that's good enough, I think. Xevithirus. Xevithirus. New vocabulary unlocked for 身体. I really liked this one when I saw it. I was like, yes, this is just the sort of thing you want. It says an old Chinese acupuncture diagram or poster of the whole body and all the points to stick the needles relates to both body and health. Yes. So that's really good because that's what 身体 does. 你妈妈的身体好吗? How's your mum's 身体? Basically, it's not how's her body. I'm not saying it. Don't misunderstand that. It's how's her health. So yeah, this is really hits both. When you find an image that hits both, that's a great thing. Well done. Next is Chad Ressler on Vocab Unlocked for several words here, but he's gone for Nanting, or Ting. So just Nanting, literally difficult to hear or listen, which means bad sounding, right? Nanting. So he says, I used a picture of fingernails on a chalkboard. Yeah, there's nothing else you really need there because, again, the characters are so easy. Same with these other ones, 难受 is actually probably the hardest one on this list, and it's really easy anyway. Like, 难受, let me just look up the exact English. What's the exact English definition of this? Because to feel unwell, happy, unhappy, or pained. Yeah. So you're having trouble with something, basically, is how it's most commonly used. So 难受, literally difficult to take. 受 is like to receive from something, some outside force. So it's difficult to take. 难受. I mean, just get someone with their head in their hands. 难过, I guess, would be like, it's also fairly abstract, maybe even harder than 难受in terms of the way the characters are used, because 难过 means sad, but it's like difficult to 过. Like 过 is often used, there's tons of different meanings depending on the context, but 过 can mean to get over something, get past something. 过日子, like, to live your life, essentially. So hard to live, I guess, could be a translation. Maybe, I'm not sure what the original one was supposed to be, but it doesn't matter when you're making mnemonics. It doesn't matter if what you're saying is accurate or not. It matters, does it stick, and is it accurate? Is it an accurate definition? Which is sad, so yes. So yeah, just whatever, sad, some sort of picture with sad. I'm sure you could come up with something. 难吃难看, difficult to eat, difficult to look at, which means disgusting and ugly. Okay, and then 难听. So I'm not even going to give you ideas because I'm not going to insult your intelligence. I'm sure you could come up with something easily for those. Next is Tina Clark on Vocab Unlocked for 对. So 对 is something something 来说. 对我来说, I mean, like, so saying like, in my opinion, you know, or it could also mean for someone. So from someone's perspective as well. Check out the example sentences there for exactly how to use it. But yeah, 对我来说 is probably the most common way of using it. So in my opinion, blah, blah, blah. Just get someone, you know, that picture of someone speaking like that with their eyes closed. The people that do that really annoy me. Like people that are very opinionated and don't ask for your opinions, just want to give their own opinions. So like, in my opinion, I think that, you know, just someone like explaining something sort of condescendingly, that'll work for me. And then 对不起, we covered this actually in the pronunciation mastery course. And I've talked about this word a few times. It's very cool. It's a very good word. And 不起 is like, so 起. When you have 不起, usually actually, when you have a verb with 不起 on it, you're saying you can't afford something. 买不起. I can't buy that because of no money. Or 吃不起. I can't eat that because of no money. Right? It's always no money, it seems to be, except in this case with 不起. 对不起. Like, to 对 means something means to face someone. It's one of the meanings of it. So I'm so sorry. I'm ashamed in a way. I can't face you. 对不起. 对不起. Another one is 对不住. 对不住了啊. 对不住了. 对不住. It's like I can't keep looking at you. I have to look away. 住, like it's like to keep doing something, to fix, to do something in a fixed manner. Yeah. So what is an example? Maybe from a movie, someone apologizing. Oh, there's a movie, that music video for one of that U2 songs, which I'm not really a big U2 guy, but I just remember being very impressed by the music video. So there's one with him on a bus, and he just got all these celebrities. He forgot, the reason why he did it was because he forgot his wife's anniversary, and he wrote that song for her. I can't remember the song. It's weird. I just remember the video. But I'm sure anyone that knows U2 knows what I'm talking about. And 对面, literally the facing side, so it means opposite. So two people opposite. I like the idea of a UFC or boxing match image where you've got two guys facing each other. That'll work. Next is Annette Bicknell for 会, as in 机会 and 一会儿. Remember, that's 一会儿. It's the third tone, 会. It's not fourth tone. I used a cartoon image for 一会儿 of a child with a scrape on the knee and a star of pain emanating from it. The pain will go away in a little while. That's a good one. And 机会. Don't worry about the original reason of why these two words, characters are together. I look at the two words. When I look at 机, I think of machine, right? And 会, as in able to. Now, I'm 100% sure that that's not the original reason. Robots are able to. But I think that's a good way to make a mnemonic. Again, it doesn't matter what the accurate reason or definition is, as long as it's there. So literally, you could write this down for your mnemonic for this. Robots can or are able to give us a lot of opportunities, let's say, right? Because they can do a lot of stuff for us. We have opportunities for other stuff, okay, to do other things. That'll work great. The last one here is from, actually it's two people. They answered the same, they left a comment under the same lesson, coincidentally. It's for 来, and so it's 来自, 上来, 下来, and 过来. So it's 4 words, 3 of which are just so easy to think of in terms of a mnemonic. 来自 is probably the hardest one because it's rather the usage of the words. They kind of make sense, but not super clearly, right? So let's start with 过来. Xevithirus says it has to be Scorpion from Mortal Kombat saying, get over here, as he pulls people to him with his kunai. Yeah. Played a lot of Mortal Kombat in my days, and yeah, that'll work for me too. And Christine has gone for the 来自. She says, where did you come from? Where did you go? Where did you come from, Cotton Eye Joe? That's great for a mnemonic. That'll work probably by itself. Come from. Yeah, literally it's like 来自. So 自, of course, is often used for 自己, as in like self, and it is used on its own. But it's also used in a completely different way, and probably as common, if not more common way, which is a formal way of saying from. Or like in terms of like, usually, I guess often usually time. Yeah, from this time to this time. But just generally just think of it as from, a very formal way. Don't use it in speech like that. So literally come from, right? So it's actually very clear if you know the second usage of that character. If you don't, of course, it's a bit weird. So yeah, I think that'll work. 上来. So the important thing to remember about these sort of directional complements is just to basically make sure that you show the image. The image is very, very important. It's important anyway for any word, but especially important for these. So 上来, it's someone, the speaker is looking at someone else and saying, come up. 上来, up, come. Right? So maybe get a bird's eye view of looking down at someone, and that'll be enough. And then 下来, opposite, right? So it's someone looking up, saying come down. And just make sure you get a very memorable picture that shows that for each of these words. Same with 过来 or 过去 and, 下去 and 上去, right? Just to make sure that's clear, because these can be pretty confusing when you first start out. And that should work. All right, guys, so that is the end of today's podcast. Again, like I said, relatively short one today, but I like to think that we've got a lot of very short but yet sweet comments in there, and lots of little tidbits for you to help you along your Chinese learning journey. And I highly recommend, I've kind of bigged up our course a lot, as I usually do, as it's deservedly so, right, throughout the podcast, because it is awesome. It's doing great things for people. If you want to, like I said, if you're serious about Chinese and you want to get to a high level someday, then there is no better solution than Mandarin Blueprint. We take you step by step from very, very basics all the way to advanced proficiency. And once we expand the course, you're going to be able to use purely our course, pretty much, and go from zero to reading and understanding and eventually being fluent in native content. I can't be fluent in native content, but you know what I mean. You reach decent levels of fluency, which come usually after you've actually built that foundation, and you start to acquire the language through lots and lots of reading and listening. That's how language is acquired. Maybe I'll talk more about that process in the next podcast. But until then, thank you very much for listening, and I'll chat to you next time. Bye-bye.